pelvis and the hips. So the exercise looks a bit like this, okay? So we're going to take our legs wide into what we call abduction of the hip. If you're anything like me, you might feel a bit crampy just getting yourselves into this type of position. You might not be able to get your legs as wide as me, and that is absolutely fine. Don't worry if you can't. What we're going to be trying to do is to put our forearm like this onto the floor, running alongside our legs. So we're aiming for that like elbow to go down on the floor. The other arm goes over the top like this. We're making sure that we're twisting our rib cage open. So you're not trying to touch your foot. If you try and touch your foot, you're going to have your rib cage kind of closed off. You're hunching your back. You're not getting lateral flexion here at all. Do not worry about your foot, okay? I don't care if you touch your foot. What we're looking for is openness through the side body, not being competitive about whether or not we touch our foot in this exercise. So you're aiming to have your forearm running alongside your leg like that. That might not work, so you can just put your hand down, that's absolutely fine, and you can do exactly the same thing. Remember, I'm not trying to touch my foot with my right hand, which I can do. If I rotate my rib cage in, I'm trying to stretch my side body. And at times of yore, when I've been more flexible, because I've been doing way more yoga and stuff like that, I have been able to touch my toe, but I have to try and let that go, because that's just not quite where my body is at the moment. Now, the reason I put the block underneath my bum, as I did that kind of wide-legged position, is because I really want you to think about your pelvis. Having the block underneath your pelvis, and you can see here how I kind of rock forward slightly onto it so the block lifts up. Depending on what your block is made out of, like that may or may not work. Mine is cork. If you have a foam block, that might not work. Can you see how my pelvis is tilted forwards into extension? And it's almost like I have a little bit of an arch in my lower back and my spine is long. This is what I want you to maintain as you do that like side twist, and that's where the block is very helpful. For many people, as soon as they sit in this type of position, myself included, I haven't done enough hip stuff today to warm up for this one because this is a toughie, but it will get me going when I'm in it. Can you see how I'm sitting like this and my pelvis is tilting backwards and my spine is rounded, okay? This is not what we want. If you're doing this, you're not going to be stretching off the side torso in the proper way. It doesn't matter if you need a brick under your bum. Enjoy doing things well, and through doing things well, you'll unlock these stages in time to come. So sometimes when I'm a bit more warmed up, I don't need the block, but for today, I need the block because I can just see it in how my spine and my pelvis is. So I'm going to put the block there. It's going to help remind me that I need to tilt the pelvis forwards, so I'm creating an arch in my lower back, and that puts the work into the hips. We are dorsiflexing the feet back, so we're keeping active through the tops of our feet and sort of tightening up our shins here. We're keeping our quads nice and tight, and we're trying to a little bit externally rotate our legs backwards. So you're not excessively, you're not actually trying to rotate your legs, but as you come to the side, you might notice that your legs kind of go forwards like this, and that's your body trying to lose the momentum through your legs, and you're trying to fight that. So you're not actively trying to get yourself in some crazy hip opener stretch here, but you're trying to keep that your kneecaps and the tops of your legs are like facing up towards the ceiling, not rotating forwards, okay? So we're going to do a minute on either side. We're going to try and tilt that pelvis forward so we keep our spine long. Feet stay active. I'm putting my left forearm onto the floor, and I'm just taking my right hand over my head, keeping my neck long. I'm trying to almost use my left arm against my left leg to open my chest out. So I'm not rotating down towards the toe trying to touch it. I'm trying to stay open through my side torso, and I'm trying to keep my weight, this is important, through both hips, okay? If you try too hard to go to the left-hand side, you'll notice that you take weight off your right hip in order to achieve that. I don't want you doing that. You need to feel as grounded through both hips as possible because it's through doing that grounding through the hips and through the pelvis that you get the release in the like the side body and the lower back and the QL and stuff like that. If the right hip goes with you, it's elevating and you're not getting the length through that side torso. So make sure that the opposite hip does not lift as you lean to the opposite side, okay? So, sliding left forearm towards the floor, or just have the hand on the floor if that's enough. Trying to roll the pelvis forwards, taking that right arm over, not being competitive about touching the toes. We're thinking about keeping the quads tight, feet active, hips equally grounding, and we're trying to open the rib cage up, not twist it towards the foot. Okay, I am not doing this very well today at all. This is definitely one I need to work on more. 3, 2, 1, off we go. So as soon as I go a little bit too far to the left-hand side, I'm releasing that right hip, so I'm sort of pushing my right hip back down again, then suddenly it feels like harder work and I'm getting more stretching through my tight right-hand side. Keep on breathing. Relax the head. You might notice you're trying to tense up your teeth or your jaw. Keep grounding down through that right hip, active through the feet, twisting the knees to make sure that they stay facing up to the ceiling and don't roll forward. Use your left arm against the floor and against your leg to help create a little bit of leverage to open the rib cage up. You're trying to get as much of a stretch through that right sort of side body, side of the spine, etc. 10 seconds left here. Keep grounding through that right hip. 3, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And come back up to center. I think what I'll do this time round is I'm just going to change the angle so that you can see from the front again. So my legs are wide, but I'm focusing on that pelvic position more than I am how wide my legs are, okay? Because it's that pelvic position that's really going to help us get into the nitty-gritty of the hips. Once again, I'm better on this side, so it's a little, I should have maybe started that way around it. We're doing this type of movement. We're not trying to touch the toe. We're trying to open up the side body. And if I was perfectly functional, I would be able to touch my toe without feeling like you're lifting up through this opposite hip. Okay, so this opposite hip has to stay pushing down and grounded so that we create the movement through the side body. Okay, 3, 2, 1, off we go. Remember, keep breathing. The feet are active, my quads are tight. I'm actively pushing down a little bit more than my body wants me to into my left hip. I'm using my right arm against my right knee to help kind of leverage me open so my rib cage isn't falling in. Relax and relax through my head. My arm is straight and active and working, and I'm really, really trying to focus on that grounding through my left hip. And as I do that, I start getting a bit of a cramping and a wobbling and a release through my right hip. So my right hip is tense and tighter than my left-hand side because my left-hand side is weaker. But by reminding my left-hand side to kind of take the equal amount of load, it helps wake it up and it helps release the right-hand side. This feels lovely. 10 seconds left. Keep breathing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And hopefully you were still thinking about that pivot forwards at the pelvis. It's not about collapsing back in the pelvis and then trying to do it because you're not getting anything happen from your hips then. It's about the movement coming from this like secure, strong hip foundation. So QL stretch, that is a bit of a toughie.